Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Thank you for checking the video out today. I didn't think I'd be making a second video today, but this announcement definitely warrants one. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has officially been announced as a PlayStation 5 exclusive. Now, for those who are unaware, this is Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. Instead of calling it Part 2, they are calling it Rebirth. We have some new information to go over that's coming directly from the development team. Now, this was something that many fans were hoping would be announced today, but it's interesting to see the reaction because a lot of people are surprised at how much we are learning about this game. I think that at the very most, what a lot of people were expecting is if this game did show up during the 25th anniversary stream for Final Fantasy VII, it would come in the form of like a small teaser or something like that. But no, they gave us our first trailer, and as I said, we have quite a few different things to go over here and talk about. So I want to say before I get into this that the timing of this couldn't be any better for me personally, because I just started playing Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade for the PS5. This is my first time ever playing a Final Fantasy game, and I'm going to talk more about that towards the end of this video, but yeah, the timing of this announcement for me feels like it really couldn't have happened at a better time. But we're heading over to the Final Fantasy VII Twitter account, where they say, "We're delighted to present messages from Final Fantasy VII Rebirth creative director Tetsuya Nomura, director Naoki Hamaguchi, and producer Yoshinori Kitase." And so this is from Tetsuya Nomura, the creative director. He says, "As revealed on the broadcast, there are currently 4 Final Fantasy VII projects being developed in parallel. Although each of the 4 titles plays a different role, they are all connected through the high-quality depictions of Final Fantasy VII's world and characters. As someone who is involved with the development of each and every one of the original titles, I deeply understand the vision and thoughts behind each project, and I am actively involved in the development process for all 4 titles. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is being designed so that people can enjoy this game whether they know the original game or not. In fact, new players might even enjoy starting their Final Fantasy VII journey with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Cloud and his friends embark on a new journey in this game, and I believe that the scenes that they witness after leaving Midgar will give players a fresh new experience." So that's very interesting. He is saying that if people are interested, they could just pick up Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and allow that to be their only Final Fantasy VII experience if that's what they want. So let me know what you guys think about that. Next up, we're going over what the director Naoki Hamaguchi has to say. So he says, "I am overjoyed that we are able to announce Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, and I feel a strong sense of duty to deliver the ultimate Final Fantasy VII experience to all the fans eagerly awaiting this game. The development has already entered full production, and the team is highly motivated in putting everything together on the project and working to create a finished game. The Final Fantasy VII Remake project will be a 3-part trilogy. But Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is much more than just one installment in the series. We are developing it with all the passion and dedication needed to create an original game and plan to deliver the ultimate gameplay and world-building experience. Trust me, it will be worth the wait." So, some big words coming from the director of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. It's honestly pretty exciting to hear everything that's going into this. And so finally, we have what the producer Yoshinori Kitase, what he has to say. So he says, "We have officially announced that the second title, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, will be released next winter, approximately 3 years after the original Final Fantasy VII Remake released in April of 2020. 3 years may feel like a long time for all the fans who are eagerly awaiting the next game, but we want to offer the best experience possible and reassure everyone that development is proceeding at an astonishingly fast pace for such a large-scale HD title. Making the middle part of the trilogy has its own challenges, but there are plenty of classic second-hand installments in the world of film that are defined by stunning story twists and deeper explorations of their characters. Often, these second installments become a favorite amongst the fans. In the same vein, we are aiming to make Final Fantasy VII Rebirth an even more gripping and memorable experience than Final Fantasy VII Remake, so please wait a little longer while we finish up." And so this is what we are hearing from the creative director, the director, and the producer. And you can tell that there is a lot of excitement behind this announcement and a lot of passion behind what they're doing here with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I feel like it's going to be difficult not to call it Remake Part 2, but I think there are a few different things we can take away from what's being said here. The first thing that I think many of you are going to want to pay attention to is the fact that it's going to release winter of next year. So in 2023, for PlayStation 5, you're looking at Final Fantasy 16 and Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth launching within 6 months of one another. That's assuming that neither of these games get delayed. Obviously, we have no idea if that's what's going to happen, but as of right now, that's what it looks like. And for PlayStation 5 in general, that's on top of getting Spider-Man 2, I would assume Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic Remake, maybe that could end up being a 2024 game, and you would assume a few other game announcements that have yet to occur that are set to release in that year. But nonetheless, it's looking like next year is going to be absolutely insane for the PlayStation 5. I mean, next year in general is looking like it's going to be absolutely insane for gaming, but they're also talking about it being something that is going to seemingly be bigger than what people are expecting. I think that there's maybe a set expectation for the second part of this game. And I mean, look, it's just words that they're saying here. We're going to obviously have to wait to see it. But based off of just how much success Final Fantasy VII Remake found, I do kind of think that, yeah, it makes sense that they're going to put even more into this game. They're going to give it a bigger budget. They're going to try to make it bigger and better and expand in every way they possibly can, because I mean, they want to do better than they did with Final Fantasy VII Remake. This is just the way this stuff works, right? So I think that's very promising. This is going to be a PlayStation 5 exclusive. That's something else that I do think is worth pointing out here as well. The reason why I think it's worth pointing out is because a lot of people were kind of wondering, like, you know, when is Final Fantasy VII Remake going to be announced for Xbox? I remember back in 2020 when I was covering Final Fantasy VII Remake, a lot of people were under the impression that it was just a one-year timed exclusive, and frankly, I can't blame them for thinking that. But here we are, you know, 2 years later, and the game still isn't coming to Xbox. It makes me think that Sony may have potentially locked Final Fantasy VII Remake down as a permanent exclusive, potentially, or if not a permanent exclusive, an exclusive for like 3 or more years. And so when we look at Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, it seems that that's not going to be releasing on Xbox. And if I had to guess why Sony's going so far out of their way to make Final Fantasy VII Remake exclusive to the PlayStation 5 console and not released on the Xbox console, is because they are trying to set like a precedent, I guess, and make it so that, look, if you're on Xbox and you're even considering buying a PlayStation to play this game, it's not coming to Xbox, at least not anytime remotely soon. I just feel like that's the message that Sony's trying to get across with this. And so, yeah, I know that a lot of PS5 owners are very excited about this, because this is, I mean, let's face it, this is a console seller, right? This is a game that's going to make a lot of people go out there and be like, well, time to get a PS5. And so they don't say anything about PC, so we'll see if they update us on that. It is worth noting Final Fantasy 16 is confirmed for PC, so, you know, we'll see if Rebirth or Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is going to be the same situation or not. But just to close out this video, I want to talk briefly about my experience playing Final Fantasy VII Remake so far. I mentioned earlier in this video that I did start playing it for the first time. It's my first experience with a Final Fantasy game. You guys have been telling me for years to pick this game up and play it. I mean, you guys have really been expressing your passion for this title, letting me know, like, MBG, this is a must-play, man. And I have to be honest, like, I was extremely apprehensive. In fact, it took getting a super chat in one of my streams of somebody saying, dude, here's the money to go buy Final Fantasy VII Remake, go buy it and play it. And after that, I felt like, well, now I feel like I kind of have to. So I did, and even booting the game up, I'm just feeling kind of anxious for some reason. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know if this is going to be my cup of tea. And I'm happy to say I'm like 10 hours into it, and I'm loving it. I sincerely mean that. I'm enjoying this game way more than I thought I would. I'm finding myself just constantly wanting to turn my PS5 on and go back and play it, and just to kind of continue the story. I think the story aspect of this game and the characters and the charm, it's really, I guess all I can really say is I totally get it. Like, I completely get what people love about this game and why people are so passionate about telling me to pick the game up and play it, and letting me know that you're going to enjoy it. And the combat as well is really, really good. I mean, it is insane to look at the original Final Fantasy VII and look at the remake, and I mean, it's mind-blowing, right? It really is mind-blowing. So when I said earlier that this announcement couldn't have come at a more perfect time for me, I mean that. I mean, of course, I, as well as everybody else, we're going to have to be patient and wait till winter of next year to play Rebirth. But yeah, I mean, experiencing this game on the PS5 for the first time and then getting this announcement, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I wanted to take a little bit of time here to talk about this massive PlayStation announcement, because I do think this is a big deal. Again, I don't know if people were expecting to be getting all of this information about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth or Remake Part 2 today, but here we are. And one last thing I want to add to this video before I end it is that it's interesting when you look at the way Sony's been revealing some of their games. I mean, to me, this seemed like a game that Sony would have been likely to save for one of their bigger showcases or events that they do. Same thing with the recent announcement of The Last of Us Part 1, and even getting another trailer for Final Fantasy 16 at the State of Play. It seems like Sony's maybe, you know, loosening up a little bit, and they're feeling okay with like allowing some of these bigger announcements to kind of just happen on their own, which I think is very cool, because it gives us more to talk about, and you can kind of spread these announcements out a little bit, you know, a little bit more throughout the year, so they're not all happening at the same time. But that does it for the video, guys. Be sure to leave your thoughts down in the comments below. I'll be interested to see what you have to say. Leave the video a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Hit the bell notification icon. And feel free to share this video out on top of all that. But until next time, guys, take care.